Thanks, Sam. My name is Gabriel. I have been working here at BMC for almost 8 years. This webinar will be about BMC AR platform, best practices consuming REST APIs. We're gonna have 3 demos, and I hope you enjoy it. Here is a quick look to the agenda. I will speak for just a few minutes what we consider the best practices, tackling issues with consuming REST APIs. Then, as I mentioned it, we'll cover 3 demos using different tools and different environments to test the actions and parameters in consuming REST API. Well, the nature and purpose of the third-party REST APIs varies a lot. These principles provide a good way to get the root cause of issues and then get passive. First, and before we go too deep into testing, make sure you are meeting compatibility requirements. Be sure you have the right SSL certificate in case that you have HTTPS connection and it's not going to expire too soon. Install the certificate and test the connectivity to the server and the endpoint. Sometimes the customer infrastructure could be very complex. They have to allow you to pass through a proxy or maybe a firewall or load balancer, VIP, etc. You should always be sure that your provider environment is using compatible Java version, meaning version from 11 up to 17. Be sure you and your provider are using the same and right TLS version. We use by default 1.3. If there is a mismatch among the above points, a connection issue could emerge due to the Cipher Suite compatibility or the TLS. Second, it's fairly common that the integration is set up by someone who did not design the third-party REST service. So the information you are using and has been provided to you, it might be incorrect, it might have changed, or might be incomplete. There might be hidden requirements. So my next best practice is to find a way to validate the third-party REST information you have given. The HTTP test client provides a good way to do that, which I will cover in my first demo. Next, in the demos, we'll show you a few ways to test authentication. Failed logins might not seem like a very exciting topic for a demo, but we do see quite few of these issues. So we want to share some practice to get past those kind of frustrating issues. Finally, some issues you might encounter might be related to the kind of commands you pass, get or post or put. So my next demo covers how you can use a graphical third-party REST API named Postman as a counterparty for those kinds of operation. Let's spend a minute to talk through the sequence of how that interaction occurs. First, the filter on the form or the piece of code is triggered. Then the HTTP request is sent over the internet. Next, the REST service processes the request and sends back the response to the filter on the form or the piece of code that initiated. Finally, the information sent is either stored on the database or is used to make decisions in our workflow. Now, let's get into the demos. For my first demo, I'll be using a test utility called HTTP Test Client. It was developed by BMC. We'll download the binaries and I will show you how to use sample test script. Went through some examples, validating authentication, looking at authentication errors, and then retrieving a list of products. In order to get the binaries for the test HTTP client, you need to go to Community BMC, log in, and then you can do the search for test HTTP client, and
You can open the first one. Here is the article, and you will see the file here. This one contains all the binaries that you need to run the test. You just need to save it, your preferred location. I have already saved it, and once you have saved it, you just need to extract all the content. I have it here. I have extracted the zip file that we have downloaded, and here you go. Here is all what you need.
Now that we have extracted the content of the zip file, we're gonna get something like this. We have a lot of demo scripts, and we also have the jar file, which is the one which will execute all the scripts. Now, how can we test our REST service? Well, I have a mock server that I have created, and when I execute it, I get the token and I get a list of products. Probably you will not have a graphic interface like mine. I just have created this one to make more clear the explanation and to letting you know what we can expect from the services. Here is the first service response, which is /token, and this is the response that we get from the service /products. That's the reason why I have created this interface, just to make it more graphic or more understandable to you, but it's totally fine if you don't have any. Now, how can we test this using a script? Okay. Well, the first thing that I'm gonna do is to create a script. This is gonna be a text file. You can use any text editor. And on the first line, we have the method post, the server URL, / the REST name. And we have a couple of headers here. We have content type, which gonna be application JSON, because the server sends back a JSON. And the authorization will be the token that was provided by our third-party server provider. So now that we have our script created and saved in the same location where all the binaries are located, we need to use the command line for executed. What I will suggest is to type on the address bar cmd, and we're gonna have the command prompt console right where we need it. Now to execute it, we're gonna use these lines. It's java space -jar, the name of our jar, which is test http client.jar, and the name of our script, that is test login res.txt. We're gonna add --debug http to have in the console all the log that is generated when is executing the HTTP methods. So now we can see the ciphers that are used for establish the connection in case that we have SSL. Here we have the handshake started. Notice that we have also the label debug, which means that it's running in a debug mode, of course. And this is the method that we have used. We have used post to the REST token, and the authorization barrier is this token that we have passed. This is the host where we have sent the request, and we have here the response, which is 200 OK. That means that everything went well. If we had wrong token, we probably will have more information here related to the incorrect authentication method. Or if we do not have access to the server, probably we will have more information here, letting us know that the server is not right. Okay, but probably we want to do something more interesting, like retrieve all the products. How can we do that? Let's see it. Well, what I'm going to do next is to modify our script. First, let me clean the screen. Now I'm going to modify our script. We have this simple script, but what I'm going to do is to do it a bit more interesting. I'm adding the minus after the authorization, and I'm catching the token on this variable, retrieving the response text. After that, we have 3 pounds, and we're gonna execute now the method get, pointing to the same server, but now the rest is product, and I'm gonna pass the token as an authorization. So let's see how it goes. Well, we have the same lines: java-jar, the name of our jar file, the name of our script, and we're gonna enable the debug HTTP. So let's execute it. And as you can see, we still have the 2000 OK when we execute the authorization, and after that we do the test to the product. We execute the request get to the rest product, and we have here the 2000 OK, and we also have the list of the products, which is right here. And as you can see, we have washing machine, fridge, stove, television, and computer, which is the same thing that we get in our graphic interface. As you can see, it's the same thing. And if we get any kind of error, we will get more details. Okay, now let's cause intentionally a failure on the execution. What I'm going to do is to change the server name. I'm going to remove a couple of characters, and when we execute it, it should tell us that it could be found this server, and of course it could found the rest either. Let's see how it goes. Once again, we use the same lines, we execute it, and let's see. So this is what we get back. We have posted the token request, and the response that we have is a 404 not found. Same thing when we try to retrieve the products. We have the 404 no found, and we have more meaningful description here at the part of the error. He says unable to find mock. Please refresh and try again. Connection cannot be established. And this is one of the typical issues that we have saw. Maybe you do not have access to the server, or the name of the server is wrong, and that's why you cannot consume the rest. So as you can see, the information provided here is very helpful. Let's do another test. Now, what will happen if I change the name of the services? Instead of token, I'm gonna put tokens, and instead of product, I'm gonna set products, and let's see what happens when we execute it. What do you think it's gonna happen? Well, Obviously, we're going to get again the 404 because the resource is not found. And just let's check it. We have executed and we have the 404 not found again. Same thing at the time to retrieve the products. We have the 404 not found, and the description is the same, unable to find it. Okay, so let's clear the screen. Okay, let's undo the changes that I have done. I'm gonna paste the original one again, and now we have the right server name and the right REST name. Also, when we retrieve the products, let's save it. Well, now that we have reversed all the changes on the script that we have done, we're gonna execute it again with the same line, and let's see how it goes. And of course, we are getting the right results, right? Here we are calling the REST token. We get the 200 OK, and below we are calling the REST product, and we are getting again the 200 OK, and of course the list of the products. But if you are using a certificate for SSL HTTPS, you can also add another flag here. The flag is --debug SSL. I'm going to send the output to a log file, call it output log, so probably will be easier for us to read it. Let me execute it. Okay, it's on the screen, but I have it also here. The output log was created in the same directory. Now let's take a look at what can we found there. And we're gonna have a lot of information of the SSL transaction, the cipher suite, details about the trust sort, the trusted certificate, and a lot of information. Probably you can find here an error if the certificate is not well configured or is not valid, or if you don't have access to that server. But what we can do is search for the REST that we are consuming. In this case, let's search first for the token one. We got it here, and here is all the process using the ciphers and the SSL information. Okay, and we have the 200, okay, which means that was successful, and we had here also the token. Now let's search for the REST product. We got it here. We're doing a get to that REST. Once again, we have a lot of information related to SSL. No errors, everything looks fine. And after that, we have the 200 OK. And just below, well, the format is not the best, but we have here the products, right? The washing machine, the price, and everything. So this is another flag that you can use to test your REST in case that you are using HTTPS SSL and the provider has given you a certificate to be implemented. My second demo is using Postman to test command actions. The demo will be covering 3 typical kind of issue encountered as listed here. A typical example might be for the help desk team to query or get a list of items, create an order for parts through a third-party system available through a REST API, and then capture the order number. For my example, I will be using Bookstore app, which is publicly available in Postman, to test each of the above, where parts in my example are bugs. Postman is one of the most used tools to test REST API. This is their homepage or website, postman.com, and here below you can download the latest version for your OS. Now, before to start, I would like to mention that we will be using this application that is part of the Swagger documentation. We will not be covering Swagger on this demo, but I just want to mention this is a bookstore application which has a lot of REST API to test it. It's open. You can do it by yourself if you want. And let's take a brief look to the documentation. We are gonna create a test for the different REST services that are hosted on this application. The first one is gonna be to get all the lists of the books that are available. After that, we're gonna create a user, and then we're gonna assign one book to our user. And to do that, let's go to our Postman again. So first, I would like to mention a couple of good practices that I like to use on Postman. The first one is to create a separate collection for each use case or this use case. So you need to go here to collection, and at the right you will see a plus sign button. Let's create a blank collection, and we're gonna call it bookstore test or REST test if you like. Okay, now we have created our collection. Now after that, what I like to do is to create an environment for this particular use case of test. And to do that, you need to go here to environments. Be sure that no environment is selected. And here at the right, you will see one button. Click it, and you're gonna choose Add. This will create a new environment which will help us to keep our variables and logs isolated for each use case or test use case. And let's call it bookstore. Bookstore, sorry. And now the next thing that I like to do is to add here in the variables the base URL for each segment or each REST locations. So let's create first a variable for account base URL, and then another one for bookstore base URL. Let's go back to our Postman, and I already have them here. And this is for the bookstore, so I'm gonna call it base URL, sorry, base URL bookstore, and the initial and last value will be this one. Okay, so now let's create another one. So this one will be called base account bookstore. And this is gonna be. So now every time that we need to go to this URL, instead to type it the whole URL, we can use our variables that we have created. Now let's save it, and Let's go back to our collection. And I like to create a separate folders just to keep it more organized. Let me add a folder, and this one, I'm gonna name it list books. And inside of it, I'm gonna create a request. This request will be called get all books. Okay. Now let's go back to our documentation. So this is the get that we're gonna use to retrieve all the books. Okay. We just need to add the /books to our variable, the variable that we have created, and we will receive all the books. So let me show you. To access to our variables, we need to use a double curly brackets. Excuse me, before that, we have to select the environment that we have created, bookstores, and base URL bookstores. Okay. And here we just need to add the /books. It's case sensitive, so let's be sure that we are using the right one. No, the B is a capital B. So let's go back and let's change it. Books. Okay. Now we are using our base URL, adding the /books. And let's trigger it. And we have a bunch of books as response, and 200 OK response, which means it was successful. And let's pick one book. Let's say this one. This one is the one that we're gonna use when we assign this book to our user. So let me copy this value, and let me save it right here. This is the book to be assigned. Okay. Okay, now let's create our user. I'm gonna create inside of our collection bookstore rest test a new folder, and I'm gonna call it create user, and inside I'm gonna create a new request. It's gonna be a post, and I'm gonna call it create new user. Okay, so back to our documentation, and this is inside account B1 user, and we need to send the username and the password in the body of the request in a JSON format. We don't need any authentication yet, so let's try it. If you recall, we have created our variable points to bookstore demo.com account B1 user. That's what we need. And now let's go to the body, and we're gonna use row JSON format, and we're gonna send what is request, which is this one. Okay, we're gonna paste it here, and let's trigger it. Okay, and we have response from the server. We have 400 bad requests. What does it mean? That means that the server has received the request, but is not fulfilling all the requests or all the structure needed. And why? The code is 1300, and password must have at least one non-alphabetic character, one or more digit between 0 and 9, one uppercase, one lowercase, and one special character. So we almost have it, but we don't have an uppercase or a special character. So I have prepared here another password. We're gonna use this one. Let's replace it. Sorry. Let me replace it with the one that we get. And now looks good. We have an uppercase, we have more than 8 characters, we have numbers and a special character. Let's trigger it. And we have now 406 not acceptable. It's telling me that the user already exists. That's because I have already created. But let's use the test user one. Okay, I just want to show you what kind of answers can you get, or what response can you get on the possible codes. But now let's create another one. And this one was created successfully. We have 201 that is created, and we also have the response. It will be good if we save this information. You have two options. You can click here and save response to a file, but what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna copy, since this is just for testing purpose. I'm gonna paste it here below. This is my user, and I'm gonna paste where I get response. The next step that we're gonna follow is to assign one book to our user. So now let's go back to our documentation, and here at the bookstore we're gonna use the post, and the parameters that we need to send is the user ID that we have created and the ISBN of one book. So let's go back to Postman, and the first thing that I'm gonna do is create a new folder, add folder, and let's call it assign books. Okay, now let's create a new request, and we're gonna call it assign book to user. Okay, now as we have saw, is a post one, and is bookstore B1 books, so we can use our this one is the same one, bookstores B1 books, and now in the body we're gonna put in a row format and JSON what is request here. Let me copy it. I'm gonna paste it inside here. Oops, excuse me. So let's go back to our notes, and we have our user ID. This is the user ID that we have created. Okay. So instead of a string, let's put the user ID, and this is the ISBN that we have copied before, and that's the one that we are going to assign to our user. Okay, now we have it, and let's test it. And the response that we get is 401 unauthorized. The code is 1200, and user no authorization. And this is happening because this particular res is expecting to us to get authenticated. So to do that, we need to go to authorization, and we have many different types of authorization, but in this case we are using basic authorization. Okay, so if I put it here on authorization, I just want to show you something. Let's go to headers and authorization. It's creating a token with the user and password what we have provided. So now let's go and let's try it. Let's see the body and send and done. Okay, it says that the response is 201 created, and the ESBN of that book has been assigned to our user. Now, finally, I just want to show you that the book was assigned to our user. For that, I have created a new folder, call it Check User Books, and a new request, call it Check User Books. Okay, here in authorization, we're gonna use the same user and password that we have created, and the endpoint that we are going to use is bookstore's demo QI account user and our username, the one that the string that we get when we created our user. It's just exactly like here, right? But if you see, we are sending our user here at the URL. This is called a query, and we need to provide the user ID and of course our credentials. So let's see what happened when we execute this one. And well, we got that the user ID, that is the same one that we have here. This is the username. This user 1 2024 is the one that we have created, and it have this book assigned. Okay, so we can assign more books if we want, and we're gonna see that the list will be increased and all belonging to the same user. What if I only have access to Linux or Unix terminal? In this case, let's show you a brief demo to explain how to use the curl command, which is available in most, if not all, of Linux or Unix console. It's commonly used to test URLs and also REST APIs. Curl is one of the most used commands in Linux and Unix terminals to test connectivity to websites, but also to test REST services. So to get more information about curl command, you can type man and curl, and you're gonna get all the information about it. All what you need is here, all the parameters and how to use them. And just for demonstrative purpose, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to consume a REST that is published in an open application. You can find it in bookstore.demoqa.com/swagger/pound. Here you will find the documentation. We have in the bookstore segment this one that is called books. Let's open it. And as you can see, it doesn't receive any parameters, and it returns a list of JSON objects which contains the books with the ESBN, title, subtitle, author, etc. So we can trigger it from here, from the browser, for a web browser. And in order to do that, I'm gonna use this URL. Is bookstore.demoqa.com/bookstore/b1/books. Okay, and let's see what we get. And as you can see, we have received an array of JSON objects with many books and all the information related to each one. But if we don't have access to a browser, we only have access to a Linux or Unix terminal, we can do the same thing in our terminal. Let me show you how. Let me go back to my terminal. And here, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to use the command curl, the flag -x, the verb or the method get, and now the flag -b. This is verbose to have all the information possible. It's kinda debug mode, and call the same API, okay, or URL. And we have received exactly the same, just it's not as well organized. And what we have to look here is if any certificate has been used. In this case, it's not using any certificate. If you are using a certificate, you will get more details here, and if any failure occurs during the handshake or the time to establish the connection, you will see it here. And now we have the response. This is very important. We have an 200 OK, which means that everything went well. If you have something different from the range of the 200, sorry, that means that something went wrong, probably a typo or a data missing or lack of permissions or anything. And here we have all the books, okay? I have prepared a script with different methods of authentication. I'm gonna post it on the knowledge article. This is the one that we have used, the first one, with no authorization. But we also have another one for basic authentication. We have better token authentication too, right here. And I have also included JWT authentication. And finally, OAuth authentication. And each one contains the command that you need to send, okay? Just keep in mind that if you are going to send any header or any parameter, you have to add the -h flag, which indicates that we have headers, and then the kind of header that you are sending, okay? Okay, now I will quickly wrap up. Remember, if you are consuming a third-party REST that is using secure protocols like HTTPS or SSL, you need to receive the right certificate from your provider. In addition, the Java and TLS version in use must be compatible. We went through 3 demos. The first one was a command line utility that you can get from our knowledge article. It's called HTTP Test Client. The second used Postman, an app that is publicly available. And the third one used core command from Unix or Linux. In these 3 demos, we demonstrate ways to validate the information that you have to access the third-party REST. Validate in particular authentication information because that is a common issue. And it has common actions to make sure that it works before you try to integrate it with Helix ITMC. I hope you have found the webinar helpful, and I certainly want to thank you for your time and attention. I leave you with a list of references that are available for further information on this topic, as well as the location of the utilities and script that we are referred to.